The views expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome everyone to this edition of Insights. I'm your host, Felina Jones, and this week we'll be talking about a program that's making its way through Northeast Michigan schools called Mental Health First Aid. And joining me now is Tom Hainstock, who is the training coordinator for the program. Tom, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
And so the Mental Health First Aid program, what is it?
Mental Health First Aid is relatively new in the United States, but it's been in Australia for many years. In the United States, it's about 5 years old, and when it started, there was probably 100 instructors in the first year, and now there's about 2,000 instructors in the United States. So it's really caught on well. And the reason for that is that Mental Health First Aid can assist people in the community. We are more apt to run into a person that is experiencing mental illness or substance use disorder than we are to run into a person that needs CPR, choking strategy that is helped out by the CPR class. So it's very important for our country, and we're very fortunate to have it. We hope that Mental Health First Aid can prevent crises in the community as well as prevent suicides by having early intervention, or when a crisis arises, people will know that there is help out there.
And who is this course designed for?
This course is designed for primarily anybody that lives in the community. There are special modules for schools and special modules for police personnel and even for rural areas. But the course is designed for people that are not experts. It's a course that is a first aid course, and it shows some simple strategies to assist people. And it's not going to create a therapist when it's over. Nobody's going to be qualified to diagnose. We're just going to use some simple strategies, kind of like CPR has always taught ABC, airway, breathing, circulation.
Right.
This course teaches ALGEE. And
Which stands for?
Algae. And algae is the name of a koala bear, since this course originated in Australia, and now it's in 17 countries. When it came to the United States, we just used the name they had for that little koala bear that is their mascot, and it's ALGEE. A means assess for risk of suicide or harm. L means listening non-judgmentally. G is give reassurance or information. And the two E's are encouraging. Encourage the person to get professional help, or encourage the person to get self-help.
Okay. And within the overall program, there's two specific lesson plans, correct?
Correct. One is a youth course, and we're teaching that in 8-hour segments, and we're doing that throughout Northeast Michigan, probably touching on every school in the 4-county area that our agency works for, and that's Northeast Michigan Community Mental Health Authority, and that is for Alcona County, Alpena County, Montmorency County, and Presque Isle County. And so we'll be at all the schools, and it's being promoted in the schools by the Northeast Michigan it's initiative for behavioral health. Shelley Clark is involved with doing that. And so we're trying to have those audiences. And then we also have a class in December for adults in Alpena, and we have a class in January for youth. And both of those are at the Alpena office of Northeast Community Mental Health. And I can give a phone number at some point where people could register for these free classes, which include lunch. The book is about a $20 book, and Northeast Michigan Community Mental Health Authority is providing the book, and and lunch at its courses. And Shelley Clark is providing lunch in the schools if it is during lunchtime that we teach there.
Okay.
But both the classes are 8 hours.
Okay. And so the first aid course that is currently going through Northeast Michigan schools, that's for teachers and staff to learn about mental illness and signs of depression for students, correct?
Right. There's several diagnoses that'll be covered. I think there's about 7 of them. But people won't be an expert at remembering all of the diagnosis information, but they will be very familiar with signs and symptoms that a person could experience. Signs are usually things that we can see, and symptoms are things that we might be able to observe, but the person is actually experiencing or feeling. And if we can identify some of those things, we can maybe encourage the person to get some help.
And why did you guys decide to actually go to the schools and really hit hard with the teachers and the staff of schools around Northeast Michigan to teach these lessons?
Well, it's not just the schools. We've taught about, by the end of this month, we'll probably have taught 300 people in the last 2 years. Okay. And it's because it's been, what has happened in the United States, there's been community crises that have happened, and they can see the value of this course. I mean, whether it was in Tucson, Arizona, or Colorado, or Connecticut, people don't want crises in their communities, and we want to do what we can to help. And that's why they are here. This is one course that isn't favored by one political party or the other. It has been promoted extremely well by President Obama, and at the same time, Michigan Governor Rich Snyder has supported it. So it's across party lines that people know the importance of this course.
Okay, fantastic. Well, when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about how this course is affecting the community. Welcome everyone back from the break. Before we left you, we introduced you to the program Mental Health First Aid, and we introduced you to Tom Hainstock, who's the training coordinator for the program. And Tom, I want to ask you, what do people that take this course learn?
You know, you would think that you attended the course because you listen non-judgmentally so well. Maybe in your background in your career, listening has been taught you so well that you are an expert at it. But listening non-judgmentally is a strength that some people have naturally, and others learn this in the course in scenarios that are as realistic as possible, that people can relate to their own families or their roles in the community. But it's also taught in some pairing off of people in the group so that they can communicate with each other for 5 or 10 minutes and practice listening non-judgmentally. When a person is having mental health problems, if you think of the value of listening non-judgmentally, sometimes it's a lot easier to think of listening with judgment. If a parent says something to their child and their child responds in a way that the parent didn't want to hear it, it's hard for the parent to listen non-judgmentally. And so sometimes it breaks down communication. So that's one of the best things from this course, I think, is that it really gives people hands-on practice to listen non-judgmentally. There are other skills too. Reassurance and giving information to a person. Making a person feel that they are valuable, and boosting self-esteem is taught with some scenarios also. When we have 5 scenarios in the youth course, for instance, it just gets a little tougher in each one of them, and people are able to use the steps in ALGAE to solve the problem. And so it gives a lot of practice in listening non-judgmentally and giving reassurance and information, but also it comes to the point where somebody will have to encourage professional help because we're just first aiders. And also, similar to CPR, we also might just call 911. 911 is, I mean, if we find someone that is considering killing themselves, we're going to stay with them and we're going to call 911 or make sure that we get some help right now.
Right.
Because we know that's life-threatening, and that's a real emergency.
And I know something that you guys touch on in the course is also knowing the difference between just normal teenager behavior versus something that may truly be mental illness.
A lot of times we talk about people in a lot of walks of life are familiar with frequency, intensity, and duration of problems. The frequency of signs and symptoms could be increasing. Maybe the person's behavior, it's happening more often. And the intensity is really getting to be a noticeable factor. And then the duration, we don't have to be an expert at knowing whether it lasts 3 weeks, it's a problem, or 2 weeks. But we just know that this person is having trouble living, laughing, and loving in their community. And so when it starts interfering with their daily activities for a period with those 3 factors in mind, we know it's time for some help, but they have to want it, and so we can only encourage.
Right. And those individuals that go through the course, what are they taught to kind of help encourage the students and kind of walk them through their problems?
The scenarios, I would guess, would be the biggest help. See, the book is, I don't know, maybe it's 150 pages, and we refer to the book in the class a lot, but it's also a great resource people can take with them. And signs being observable that a person has, the first letter, A, assessing, is a chance for a person to think over the situation and see if we have a problem or not because they have their knowledge of the signs and symptoms.
And how big of a problem is mental illness?
I think I mentioned earlier that 1 out of 4 people will experience a mental illness or substance use disorder this year. And the sad thing is less than half of those people will get help.
And so that's another reason why this course is just so imperative to bring to the community.
I think so. They have a goal nationally. It's promoted and created in the United States by National Behavioral Health Council and University of Maryland and University of Missouri. And their goal, there's 70,000 they expect to be taught this year in the United States. And at the same time, 12 million will attend CPR classes. And so they'd like to increase it to be about the same numbers. So I think there's going to be some national efforts.
And going into, you also mentioned an adult course. How does the adult course differ from the youth course?
The adult course has more time with each diagnosis, and it spends more time with substance use disorder because it's more prevalent in adults. It also, one of the efforts, some of your public service announcements you have on your own TV here at WBKB is the Trevor Project. And the Trevor Project is going to tie in with the adult course so that it can let people know that there's help in their communities.
And speaking about the Trevor Project, for those viewers that have not seen those commercials, can you explain a little bit about it?
The Trevor Project, throughout the commercial, it keeps saying, talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. And there's some very powerful videos in these courses, there's 2 in each of them, that show that just talking to a person and listening could have been so helpful. Trevor, the phone number for Trevor Project is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline that people can call to get help at any time. And I've got that number in one of the books that I'm sure that people could call me if they need it and don't have it today. My number at work is 358-7865. And I'm not a therapist or a counselor at mental health, but I can certainly help people find the answer if they have questions. And it might be the quickest way to find an answer. Although just calling 356-2161 in Alpena can get a person connected to one of many staff that works with crises and can answer their questions, even if it's not for them.
Right, right. And like you said earlier in the program, that this course is not designed to make you a certified psychiatrist, but just kind of the beginning steps of helping people through whatever they may be going through. But when whoever takes this course, when they realize that a student may be suffering from mental illness, what would you encourage them to do?
Well, I think what we encourage is them to call, like call local mental health and see if we've got some wonderful staff that can answer their questions and guide them towards the next steps. So that's probably one of the best things to do. Because a lot of times people do not want professional help because they don't know what it means. And so we can assist people by answering their questions.
Okay. And how can people get involved in this program if they want to bring it to their local school or even just community members?
Right. Ed LaFramboise, the director of Northeast Community Mental Health Authority, is talking at meetings he attends throughout the 4 counties and encourages staff to do the same. And we're offering it. If we could have a group of 10 people, even in a workplace, we'll go there.
Okay.
So we're very open to spreading this class throughout Northeast Michigan.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for joining me today.
Well, thank you.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk to an ACC staff member who actually took the course and is thinking about becoming a certified training professional herself. Welcome back, everybody, from the break. Noelle Hall joins me now, who is the director of the Wellness Center at Alpena Community College. Noelle, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. And so you, a couple months ago, actually took the mental health first aid course. What made you take it?
Myself and one of the technicians actually took it, and because we see a lot of different situations, a lot of different people coming in with wanting to talk and talk about different things, and so we are there to help listen and help kind of guide them in the right direction. Being in the education system, we want to be able to educate them on what's out there to help them.
Right, definitely. And what kind of tools did you take away from the course that helps you in your everyday career life?
I think it's being very non-judgmental and listening to people, letting them open up and actually talk about what's going on in their lives, and listening, and then being able to ask questions from there.
Right, right. And then also, there's 2 different programs. It's the youth and the adult, but ACC kind of falls in the middle. How do you kind of assess the age difference and how to help people?
I think the ones that are a little bit older are a little more mature at a different level. You can talk to them at a different level than you can with the younger ones. And sometimes the younger individuals don't really know why they feel the way they feel or why they may be acting out or moody or anxious or stressed about something, where I think in the older groups, even all the way up to the seniors that we have working out there, I have a better idea of, well, I think it's because of this or because of that, and you can kind of let them talk and listen to them and maybe give them some different avenues or resources that they can follow up with to actually help them.
Right, and what kind of resources are available to them?
Well, there's a lot of resources in the community as far as even just, you got counseling. I think there's a 211 program that Carlene Chuketsky puts on and gives you a lot of the different avenues and places that you can go for help. You have a lot of different entities out here in the community that are there to help you get by.
And why do you think it's so important to be educated on mental illness?
I think we're seeing more and more of it. I think socially, economically, there's a lot more stressors in our society, and people may not have been taught, or perhaps they just really don't know how to deal with it in a constructive manner. And so it comes out in substance abuse, it comes out in anxiety, and it can be very, very extreme at sometimes.
And working in the Wellness Center, do you see a lot of cases?
We do. Yeah, we have a lot of students coming in, and they'll tell you about, you know, their home lives and where they're coming from, or just even being single with children and working and coming to school. I think there's so many things on their plate that sometimes they don't know how to separate it out and know where to begin.
Right. And you taking the course, it doesn't make you a certified psychologist or whatever or a therapist, whatever the case may be. So what kind of tools can you give them just from your perspective?
Basically, I just sit down. We really listen to what they have to say and then direct them in the right area, whether it's going to another instructor, whether it's using our counseling services, whether it's using counseling services in the community, giving them another outlet, professional person that they can talk to, and knowing where those resources are. I think that's the biggest thing. Sometimes they don't know where to go.
Right.
They don't know where to turn, and we're not the ones to, like you said, be doing the counseling. We're not educated to do that.
Right.
But it's seeing those little things. Maybe they're really quiet. Maybe they're just not coming to class. Maybe they're just not showing up. They've been gone for a while. You just look at those different patterns that seem unusual for them, or as you get to know them, and then you decide how you can try to help them anyway, or get them in the right direction. A lot of times people just want to talk.
Right.
They just want somebody to talk to.
And do you guys have an open door policy where people can just drop by?
Yeah, our doors are always open,
Okay.
and they come in and out all the time.
Okay. And that kind of brings me into my next point. We were talking about warning signs, knowing that just because you know that person, something's a little bit off. Why is it so important to realize the warning signs?
Because it can become very dangerous and very extreme, and maybe even lead to suicidal thoughts or them harming themselves, or even never asking anybody or asking for help. So it can be very self-destructive. So I think it is very important to get on it right away. But like you said, we're not the ones treating it. We're not the preventative. We're kind of the middle person. This is the go-between.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so you at the college, you have actually decided that you wanted to become a certified trainer within this course. Why'd you make that decision?
I think is very important, and I think I would really like to see it be part of our staff development day, so a lot of the instructors and our staff can be more informed and more aware, and they already are. They're very, very helpful, and they're very in tune, and they already are doing a lot of that, trying to help people lead in the right direction anyway.
Right, right. And so for viewers that are watching that aren't familiar with this program, how would you encourage them to kind of get involved?
Well, they could take one of the courses that is being offered at Northeast Michigan Community Mental Health with Tom Hainstock. He does a great job at instructing, and I think that's probably one of the first steps. I know the school systems are getting involved, and there are some in-services and things going on there. But learning more about it through that avenue or contacting him would probably be a good first start.
And is there any courses that ACC offers at all regarding mental illness?
We do not at this point in time, not to the extent that Mr. Hainstock went through it.
And what's the biggest takeaway that you've taken away from this course and as you are moving forward into becoming a certified instructor?
I think you really start to realize that it goes across the whole realm of everybody. It just depends on how they're equipped to handle it. Everybody experiences a little bit of depression or anxiousness or downtimes, and some swing right back out of it, and some don't. And so it's just realizing that it's everybody out there. It's not like you in your own little boat, or that person that's talking to you is all alone. And I think that's important to let them know that.
Yeah, and I like what you said, because I think it's important in living in a small community for people to know that they're not alone.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Right. And for you, becoming a certified instructor, how do you decipher the difference between, like you said, just a normal everyday life, oh, I'm kind of in the slums, versus, oh, this is a little bit something more serious?
I think as you ask the questions to them, they will enlighten you. They will let you know what they're thinking usually. If you don't judge them and you open up the door and you leave it very broad, it's not in a personal sense, they end up sharing. And the more they share, you can kind of get a good idea that perhaps you need to direct them in a different direction. They'll tell you.
Right. And with people coming to you, have you felt that it's easy for them to open up to you, or has it been kind of a barrier? I know you were talking about non-judgmental approach and kind of just letting them talk. Do you find that it's easy for people to open up?
I think so. I haven't had any difficulties with that. Quite frequently they'll come back and have other questions, or they just want to talk, and then you try to direct them in another direction or find another resource for them.
Right, right.
So yeah, it's been pretty easy to do that. And the same thing with the technician in there. You know, whether it's with classes, it could be anything.
Right, right. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Noelle.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Well, that'll wrap it up for this edition of Insights. You can catch us here back next Sunday. Have a good night.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.